The galaxy was vast and old, filled with civilizations that had risen and fallen long before humans learned how to walk upright. On the far side of the Orion cluster, the Lithari, an elegant race of crystal-skinned beings, were among the most advanced of the current age. They had allies spread across sectors, starfleets that could respond to any crisis, and treaties that promised protection. Yet when the nightmare came, none of those allies were near. The Krith descended without warning. They were biomechanical predators, living metal fused with organic hunger driven by a single purpose: consume. Cities burned, skies turned black, and so the Lithari did the one thing they never thought they would need to do. They sent an emergency broadcast across the stars. The SOS was encrypted to reach only their allies. It was desperate, broken, filled with static. To any who can hear, this is Lithar Prime, under attack. We cannot hold much longer. But the signal never reached its intended targets. Instead, a human exploration vessel, small, underarmed, and utterly unprepared for war, picked it up. The Odyssey Dawn was not a warship. She was built for surveying planets, cataloging alien plants, and maybe finding useful minerals to sell back on Earth. Her crew was small, 30 explorers, engineers and scientists led by Captain Marcus Hale, a man known less for his medals and more for his stubborn belief that humanity belonged among the stars. When the strange signal came, the ship was drifting near a barren moon, scanning for signs of life. The bridge went quiet as the alien voice crackled through the speakers. It was shaky, filled with panic, and clearly not meant for them. Lieutenant Sarah Vega, the ship's engineer, looked up from her console. That doesn't sound like a drill. Those aren't coordinates for any human colonies either. Hale leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Run it again. Clean up the static if you can. The computer did its best. The voice repeated, Our defenses are failing. We beg for immediate aid. Please, allies, we cannot. Then silence. The crew exchanged nervous glances. They had signed up to explore, not to fight. Dr. Lena Carter, the ship's medical officer, spoke first. If it's real, they're dying out there. But we don't know who they are or what we'd be walking into. The navigator muttered. For all we know, it's a trap. Lure in some curious travelers and take their ship. The bridge filled with tension. Humanity had only recently joined the interstellar stage. They were still considered young and fragile by most alien species, children from a death world that had somehow managed to reach the stars. But Hale stood, his jaw set. We may not know them, but we know this: if someone cries for help, we answer. That's what makes us human. Arrival at Lithar Prime. 3 days later, the Odyssey Dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. What they saw made their blood run cold. The planet below was scarred and burning. Firestorms raged across continents. Alien cities, vast crystalline structures, lay shattered, their towers collapsed into rubble. Above the atmosphere, dark shapes drifted. Krith warships, their hulls like swarms of metal insects. Dear God, someone whispered on the bridge. Sensors picked up ground battles in progress. Thousands of energy signatures flickered, pulsed, and died out. And then they saw them, the Lithari, tall beings of glowing crystal skin fleeing across broken streets as swarms of insect-like machines hunted them down. Captain Hale tightened his grip on the command chair. They were explorers, not soldiers. But to turn away now would be to watch genocide in silence. He gave the order. Take us in. First contact, the landing was rough. Explosions rocked the ground as the Odyssey Dawn settled near the ruins of a Lithari capital. The humans emerged in armor suits meant for exploration, not combat. The Lithari defenders froze when they saw them, small, soft-skinned bipeds carrying crude rifles. Shock filled their alien eyes. One soldier shouted in disbelief, Deathworlders! What are you doing here? Humans had a reputation in the galaxy. They came from a violent, unstable world. Storms, predators, diseases, constant conflict. Most species considered Earthlings unpredictable, even dangerous. They were called Deathworlders because their home was one of the most hostile planets known. Yet here they stood, running into a battlefield that was not theirs. We got your signal, Hale said simply. We're here to help, the Lithari commander scoffed. Help? You're fragile. You'll die in minutes. Then we'll make those minutes count, Hale replied. The first battle, the Krith came fast, Claws of steel, eyes burning red, their bodies clattered like swarms of armored spiders. The Lithari lines were already faltering when the humans joined. The difference was immediate. The Lithari fought with precision but faltered under chaos. The humans fought like cornered wolves. Sarah Vega rigged a power conduit to fry incoming swarms with arcs of lightning. Dr. Carter turned fuel cells into makeshift bombs. Ordinary explorers set traps with collapsed rubble, bottlenecking the machines into narrow alleys. Where the Lithari retreated, the humans advanced. Where the Krith expected order, they met madness, shouts, improvisation, and raw human stubbornness. The Lithari soldiers watched in disbelief. These fragile beings should have been wiped out instantly. Instead, they fought like predators who had spent their whole history surviving impossible odds. Shifting perceptions. After hours of fighting, the survivors regrouped in a ruined council chamber. The Lithari commander studied the humans, his crystalline skin dim with exhaustion. "You are not like the others," he admitted. "Your kind. You fight as if you have nothing to lose." Hale shook his head. "No. We fight because we refuse to lose." For the first time, the Lithari realized why humans had survived their own deadly homeworld. They weren't the strongest or the fastest. They were simply relentless. The shadow overhead. But just as hope flickered, the sky darkened. A massive Krith warform descended from orbit, towering, multi-limbed, bristling with weapons. Its landing shook the ground. Even the bravest Lithari trembled. "This is the end," one whispered. The alien machine raised its weapons, its shadow falling across the ruins. Captain Hale stared at it, unflinching. He turned to his crew, his voice calm. "We've beaten worse odds before. Let's show them how Deathworlders fight." The humans readied their weapons. The Lithari, inspired by their courage, rallied once more. The warform stood like a mountain of steel, its body a twisted mix of machine and flesh. Cannons glowed on its shoulders, and its multiple arms ended in claws sharp enough to tear tanks apart. The ground shook with every step it took toward the ruined capital of Lithar Prime. The Lithari survivors fell silent. Some dropped their weapons, their glowing crystal eyes dimming with despair. For them, this was the end. Their proud armies had failed. Their allies had not come. Nothing in their history had prepared them for this. But for the humans, this was not the first time they had faced something larger, stronger, and seemingly unstoppable. Captain Marcus Hale felt fear in his chest, but he did not let it show. He stood in front of his crew, rifle in hand, and said firmly, "We've beaten worse odds before. This is just another fight. Remember who we are. Remember where we come from." The crew of the Odyssey Dawn straightened, hearts pounding. They had grown up on Earth, a world of storms, predators, hunger, and wars. Compared to that, this was only another test. The Krith offensive. The warform roared, its voice a metallic screech. With a blast of plasma, it reduced a Lithari defense tower to molten rubble. Swarms of smaller Krith units poured into the streets, metallic claws scraping, eyes burning red in the smoke. The Lithari lines began to collapse again. Their commander shouted, "Fall back! We cannot hold!" But Hale raised his voice above the chaos. "No retreat. We hold the line here." Sarah Vega was already moving. She and a team of engineers set charges along the ruins, creating choke points. Every alley became a trap. Every collapsed wall became a weapon. She called out, "If they want this city, they'll have to climb over the bones of their machines." Dr. Lena Carter ran through the wounded, treating humans and Lithari alike. Her hands were steady, her voice calm even as explosions shook the ground. She whispered to one terrified alien child, "Don't be afraid. You'll see tomorrow. I promise." The humans refused to run, and slowly, the Lithari soldiers began to steady themselves. If these fragile Deathworlders could stand against monsters, then so could they. The Deathworlder edge, the Krith advanced with numbers and strength. But humans had something different: unpredictability. They had learned to fight in chaos, to improvise when all plans failed. A squad of Krith poured into a plaza, only to find themselves ambushed by humans dropping from rooftops with scavenged alien blades. Another swarm charged into an open street, unaware that Sarah had rerouted a power core. Lightning arcs fried half the machines before they could fire. The Lithari commander watched in awe. "They fight like predators," he murmured. "No order, no plan, only instinct. And yet they win." Another soldier replied, "It is not just instinct, it is will. They refused to die." The humans fought with a ferocity the galaxy had rarely seen. They bled, they fell, but they rose again, eyes blazing. For the first time, the Lithari understood why humanity's homeworld was called a death world. Only creatures forged in constant danger could fight like this. A desperate plan, but even with courage, they could not hold forever. The warform crushed everything in its path. Its plasma cannons cut through barricades. Its claws shredded armored vehicles. Every step brought it closer to the heart of the capital. Sarah Vega studied the maps of the city and the power grid. An idea formed, dangerous and desperate. She turned to Hale. If we overload the planetary reactors, we can release an energy surge. It might disable their machines. All of them, Hale frowned. And if it doesn't? Then the core goes critical. The whole planet could shatter. The room went silent. The Lithari Council members looked horrified. You would risk our world itself? One demanded. Hale's voice was calm, steady. You're already losing your world. If we do nothing, the Krith take everything. If we try, at least we have a chance. The Council hesitated. Their traditions taught caution, logic, and patience. But they looked at the humans, bloody, bruised, still standing. In those small Deathworlders, they saw something they had forgotten, the will to gamble everything for survival. Finally, the Lithari commander bowed his head. Do it. We will trust you. The final battle. The humans and Lithari worked side by side. Engineers ran cables through the ruins, linking the power grid. Soldiers defended every street, buying precious minutes. The air filled with smoke, plasma fire, and the roar of Krith machines. The warform marched closer, each step echoing like thunder. Hale led a small strike team, drawing it toward the city's power nexus where Sarah prepared the overload. Explosions tore the streets, forcing the warform to follow. It roared, firing blasts that scorched the ground around them. Buildings collapsed. Dust filled the air. Hale kept moving, shouting to his team, "Keep its attention. Don't let it leave the zone." At the nexus, Sarah's hands flew across the controls. Sweat dripped down her face as she forced the alien systems into overload. Almost there, she muttered. Just a few more seconds. The warform burst into the plaza, its massive shadow falling over them, its cannons charged. The humans had nowhere left to run, now Sarah. Hale shouted. She slammed the final command. The surge, a blinding wave of energy, tore through the city. Lightning arced across the sky, splitting clouds apart. The ground shook as the planetary reactors released their fury. The Krith warform froze mid-strike, its glowing eyes flickering, then dying. Its massive body stiffened, then crashed to the ground with an earth-shaking boom. Across the planet, every Krith machine collapsed. Swarms fell lifeless in the streets. Warships in orbit went dark, drifting like broken husks. For the first time in weeks, silence fell on Lithar Prime. Aftermath. The survivors gathered in the ruined plaza. Lithari soldiers stood among humans, both covered in dust and blood but alive. The once proud capital was shattered, yet hope had returned. The Lithari commander approached Hale. His crystalline skin glowed faintly with renewed strength. You came when none of our allies did. You risked your lives, even your ship, for strangers. Why? Hale looked at his weary crew. Then he answered simply, because that's what we do. We don't turn away. If someone calls for help, we answer. We're human. That's reason enough. The commander bowed his head deeply, a gesture of respect never given lightly. Then know this, Captain Hale, from this day forward, the Lithari will remember the Deathworlders not as children, not as fragile beings, but as saviors. Legacy among the stars' word spread quickly beyond Lithar Prime. Other species heard the tale, a desperate SOS meant for powerful allies, answered instead by fragile humans. They heard how those humans fought with reckless bravery, how they gambled an entire planet and won. To some, it was terrifying. What kind of species risked everything so easily? To others, it was inspiring. If humans could stand against the Krith, perhaps they could stand against anything. For the Lithari, it was more than survival. It was rebirth. Their faith in alliances had faltered, but their faith in courage had been restored, because of a small crew from a small world. And aboard the Odyssey Dawn, as the crew prepared to leave the scarred but living planet, Captain Hale stood at the viewport. Stars glittered ahead, endless and waiting. He whispered almost to himself, "The galaxy thinks we're fragile. Let them. We'll show them what Deathworlders really are." The ship turned toward the void, carrying its crew of explorers who had become warriors, saviors, And the first proof that humanity's true power was not its weapons or its ships, it was its heart.